Good afternoon. I'm Ron Reed with South by Southwest EDU, and I am super excited for the conversation to come. As in other sessions, please use the Engage button in your mobile app to participate in Q&A, and if you're watching us remotely and via the online schedule, we'd encourage and invite you to do the same. Like you, I was taken when I learned of the winner of the 2021 National Spelling Bee's success, not only in spelling, but with many basketball-related records in the Guinness World Book of Records. At South by Southwest EDU, we welcome and celebrate student voice. So much so, I think the very first invitation we sent to a speaker this year was to Zaila. So we're super excited to have her here. I think we might learn some insights to her many proficiencies and competitive spirit. Joining Zaila is Dr. Michael Durnil, who is the Executive Director of the Scripps National Spelling Bee, who, as the title of this session suggests, is reflecting on opportunities to reimagine and evolve the competition. We're all excited to learn more, so please give a warm welcome to Zaila and Dr. Durnil.
Good afternoon, everyone, and we're thrilled for those of you who are here in the room as well as those streaming online. We're pleased to be here to talk a little bit about the bee and a little bit about Zaila's success over the past years. I'm Michael Durnil. I'm the Executive Director of Scripps National Spelling Bee. It's quite an honor to take that role on. Just a year into my job, started March 1st last year. One of the first things I learned after I joined the bee is that everybody has their own bee story. Many of you actually participated in a bee, and what's so very interesting is that almost everyone remembers the word they went out on, right? So, and uniquely, the bee is also someplace, we talk about confetti and bells, the bee is someplace that if you actually go out, you hear the bell and applause, which is not like a lot of competitions, right? It's opposite than that. But I'm here with Z and able to celebrate her big confetti moment that has lasted an entire year. But before we get started, as I mentioned, a lot about the bee is tied up in pop culture. And so we just want to remind you of a few of those experiences. So I think there's a role we're going to have here.
There are lots of competitions this week, but if you were watching the NBA or the Stanley Cup playoffs, you might have missed the most entertaining contest of all. That's right, the National Spelling Bee, the Hunger Games of the mind.
The one word that best described my experience at the Scripps National Spelling Bee is amazing.
That is correct.
I really can't describe how amazing it is to finally be here.
So amazing to see the stage for the first time and seeing all the lights.
It's a dream come true. She wanted to be in Scripps Spelling Bee for so long.
It's not just the stage or the media or the lights, it's the people around you. It feels like a huge family. Like even when I'm on stage, Dr. Bailey, Dr. Seetsema, Judge Brooks, everyone just seems like part of my family.
But I think the most important part is what happens behind the scenes, like all the hard work, because you can't lose, you only learn.
Competition to me is a way to better yourself.
I love the bee because we come from so many different places, yet we become the best of friends. We all come to one place to show what we care about. It's a community.
Just to be competing at this high of a level, it's such a great accomplishment that no matter how well I do, I'll still be proud of it.
That is the National Spelling Bee. And it gives me a great privilege to be able to introduce to you Zaila Avant-garde, the 2021 Scripps National Spelling Bee champion, and the first to identify as a Black American to win in 93 editions of the competition. Zaila also holds 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 basketball-related records in the Guinness Book of World Records. The most bounced juggles in 1 minute with 4 basketballs, not to be outdone by the most bounces in 30 seconds with 4 basketballs, and then also the most basketballs dribbled at once. Now, I was going to say that's a tie, right? Is that one the tie?
Yes.
I wasn't going to say it, but I knew if I didn't say it, you would correct me because that's the way you are. That she would not want you to think that that was hers alone. But anyway, throughout the past 8 months, Zaila has appeared on TV and award shows. Perhaps you've seen her 1 or 2 times. She's been recognized by President and Mrs. Obama, LeBron James, and the infamous Bill Murray, which is tied to her winning word, and maybe we'll get to that story too. She was named Sports Kid of the Year, and something I think I would aspire to that I don't know I'll ever get is InStyle's Badass 50, which I think is very cool. But most of all, she's been a wonderful ambassador for Scripps National Spelling Bee. Zaila, welcome.
Thank you.
So the way that we thought that this would work is that I've got a few questions that I want to ask Zaila, and then we're going to flip the script, and she's going to talk to me a little bit about the bee and some of the places that we're hoping to go. And then we'll have a chance that if you are upvoting some questions, hopefully they'll get to the monitor and we'll be able to answer those before the hour runs out.
Sounds good.
Ready for that?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. To say that 2021 was a big year for you, I think it might be a little bit of an understatement, right?
Sure.
So I think we would start, we saw some of these pictures right here, Billie Jean King, Kelly and Ryan, just again, some of the very few people that you've had to meet. So I think the audience might be interested in knowing, like, did you have any idea when you won that this is what the year was gonna be like?
No, definitely not. I knew that there was going to be some, of course I knew there was going to be some hoopla surrounding it, but I had no idea that all of that was going to happen just based on me winning the spelling bee.
And with it being, you know, COVID and everything else, it's probably hard to kind of even imagine some of those things.
Yeah, definitely.
If you don't mind me telling a little story, the morning after the bee, I don't know if you remember this or not, but we had you up very, very early, and we were doing very early, and we were doing downlinks with all the major networks, all the different shows in the morning who wanted you on there because it was such a great story. And I'm getting chills thinking about this right now. You came out, your mom and I were sitting out in the waiting area there, and we were just kind of watching social media and seeing what happened. That morning, you started to trend on social media, in tweets and those kinds of things. And you came out and we shared that with you, and you just sort of were awestruck by that. Like, wait, what? What's happening? And I just thought there was such a cute exchange between you and your mom that morning that you were talking about, like, oh, wait, this might be something, right? And how it was all going to unfold. As you think back over the year so far, what's been your favorite moment?
I knew that's the question you were getting to.
It was a long start, right?
That is one of the toughest questions for me because I've had so many cool experiences. I got to go to the Johnson Space Center and see actual astronauts and stuff, which was super cool. I also had a Mardi Gras parade. That was pretty cool.
Very cool.
Well, okay, the way I said that makes it sound like I wasn't on one floor in a Zulu parade. But, you know, whatever. I have had so many cool experiences. I can't even pinpoint one, like, this is my favorite, because I just had so many.
So how are you going to keep track of all those? How are you going to kind of file those ways to kind of motivate you further? Have you thought about that?
Well, I have a memory. I'm a big memory person, so I think I'll probably just remember all of it. Even though I can remember everything I've done so far, and I think that it would be very nice to have those memories when I'm older.
Yeah. Of course, she's the spelling bee champion. Memory would be a big part of that, wouldn't it? Yeah. Silly me. Is there anybody out of that period, though, that you were kind of excited to meet and then finally got to meet?
Yeah, I got to meet Malala over Zoom, and that was just so cool, because she's at one of my sheroes, and getting to meet her was just probably one of the people I was most, if not the most excited about meeting.
Very cool. What do you remember from that conversation, or what kinds of things did you exchange with each other?
I don't really remember. See, the thing is that when I meet people that I'm super interested in meeting, I tend not to remember it.
Do you get a little awestruck?
I guess so.
Do you think people get awestruck meeting you?
I don't think so.
Oh, I think they do.
I don't know. I mean, you can only get so awestruck talking to a 15-year-old. So, in a good way, at least. So I would say that I was definitely a bit awestruck talking to Malala because I had read her book when I was a little girl, and just getting to actually talk to her was so cool.
Very cool. And that actually leads me to the next question. You read a lot.
A lot.
Book reading was very, very important to you, and a lot of hard work and prep went into mastering the dictionary. And so there's the education, there's the cognitive part of that, right? But what did you learn from sort of the other piece of competing on the stage? What do you take away from that?
I think what I take away from actually being on the Spelling Bee stage is, I think a lesson that I learned before I was ever on the stage, which is that people ask me all the time, do I get nervous in those type of situations, which I don't, because since I was a very young child, I've had the experience of people staring at me and stuff. So being on that stage, I think I taught myself that I am really not super nervous of a person. Like being on that stage, I finally realized that if this doesn't scare me, then nothing does.
That's true. If that's not scary, I don't know what would be. And I remember watching you during the competition in Orlando. You were in the front row, calm, cool, as a cucumber. And one of the things I remember that I thought was just so cool, again, being new to the competitive spelling community for me, watching that all go down, was how you were rooting for the people who were also in the competition. Like you would high five people and you'd clap for them if they got the word right as they sat down, or you would share a few words with them. I just thought that was the coolest thing. And I think that's one of the things we know from the Bee that actually a lot of our competitors tell us is that, we start with 11 million school children across the country. Only one of them is going to be able to sit where you are, right? So there's 10,999,999,000 of them that have to learn other things. And I think that that's great that you were able to focus on that. And going back to the book reading, right? Like talking to your mom and talking to you, I know, and your dad, that education is terribly important in your family, that you guys are firm believers in that, and that education was important in the home. What was it like, though, for you growing up doing all of that? And does it just seem pretty natural, or how did it all evolve?
It felt really natural. Like although my family is super education oriented, they don't like hit you over the head with it. Like it's not unpleasant. Like oftentimes you'll be getting educated and you don't even know it. Like you're sitting there and you're doing something, but you're like watching a TV show. You don't even know that you're actually being educated. And I think that was one of the things that my family did that was really important for me, making education fun. That it wasn't like you get this piece of chocolate if you do this. It's like, this is the chocolate. And this is the fun thing. And I think that's one of the most important things that we learned in our family.
That's very cool. That's a great lesson to learn. I'm going to test my memory, and it's not going to be very good. Tell me what your regime was like. How many words a day were you learning?
At my height, I was doing 13,000 words a day.
Yeah.
That took about 7 hours or so.
Yeah. That's 13000 in case you missed that. 13,000. That's amazing. And how long would you keep that up? For weeks at a time? Month?
That's just how I studied. When I got up to that number, then that's just what I did. That's how I studied, I guess, like many months at least.
Yeah. This wasn't one thing that we talked about, but are you okay with me going here? I remember your winning moment and the dialogue that she had with our head judge, Dr. Bailey. He had given her the word Maria, and do you remember what you said?
Yeah, I asked if this word came from I believe, American root Murray, meaning American comedian or actor.
Right. Isn't that great? In that moment, I was standing off stage and I thought, the presence of this young woman to be able to come up with that, and you knew all along that it really wasn't that root. Like that was your, so stand up in the future or no?
It's my dad joke.
It was your, oh. Okay, now, she just jabbed me because...
Jabbed you?
Well, you dad joked me. You out dad joked me on that one, right? So we have a little bit of a joke that I've been known to give dad jokes. Anyway, we should move on, right?
Yeah, we should.
There are many educators here in the audience because we're at South by Southwest EDU, obviously, and some streaming online. What do you think, what would you like to tell them that they should know in preparing students for the future, whether it's the spelling bee or just in general? What do you find successful as a student that's important?
I think, like I mentioned previously, just like making education at school be fun, not like something where you sit in a dull room and you learn rote your multiplication tables or something like that. Like make it like fun and engaging so that the kid will be learning what you want him or her to learn, but they'll be having fun doing it. And as we all know, when we have fun doing something, we're gonna look forward to doing it, and we're gonna do it our absolute best. So I guess that's just my one piece of advice for educators and stuff, is just make the learning material fun, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I go back to what you just said, you know, at your house, learning was the chocolate, right? It wasn't the reward, it was the reward in itself. I think, as an educator myself, I think that is really some very cool advice.
Yeah.
All right, I'm out of questions. It's your turn.
All right, let's get this started. Okay, my first question for you is, the bee has been around since way before I was born, you know, so how did it even get started?
So the bee started, the legacy story is we have that the bee started in 1925 with a group of newspapers who wanted to teach language literacy, quite frankly, so they would host the spelling bee. And so over the years it just grew and grew and grew, and more newspapers got involved. And at the height of the bee, there was as many as 100 or 200 newspapers sponsoring spellers across the United States. Now Scripps took it over in 1941. And as you know, you competed in the 93rd edition of that. Even though we are technically in our 97th year, starting in 25, we had to take 2 years off because of World War II and 1 year off because of COVID. So it really started as a way for for newspaper editors to talk about the importance of language. So that's what I think too is that because of that grasp, we do reach a lot of students. Yeah.
It was your first year as executive director of the Bee. What did you think?
So, I thought a lot of things, right? You know, I came in at a time during COVID after the Bee had been canceled for a year and had to think about like, how are we going to make this happen? So like South by Southwest EDU, we turned to streaming and turned to doing things online. I remember we started with 209 competitors really across the world in a lot of different time zones. We did the first 3 rounds all virtually, and I think there was like a technical problem on one of your turns, if I remember correctly, and you had to sit there for a long time, it seemed like. Do you remember that, or am I making that up?
I know that there were plenty of technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Spelling bees are traumatic events for me. I don't remember them.
Okay, fair. But I think too, I think a lot of people would be amazed to know that it is a year-long program. The Bee starts every fall in classrooms across the country. Individual schools sign up to be part of the Bee. This year, for the competition that will happen in the end of May, beginning of June this year, we've had over 22,000 schools across the country participate. Each of those students forward themselves onto the Bee that win. They go from there to the district, to possibly a multi-district before the regional, and then on to the national. But a lot of that is language literacy that we work on all year round. And I was surprised to know that, you know. And it really all starts, as you've said, with the spellers' families embracing that tradition of education and learning. Maybe parents have participated in it. We've got legacies now. I get letters and notes all the time and if there's anybody here that participated at the national level of the Bee, I'd love to talk with you. We're building our alumni database, and we're trying to get back in touch with people who participated. But in short, though, the thing that I've known all of my career, because I've had a career in education, is that it's the educators who are our biggest advocates for this, that they make a choice to bring the Bee to their school and be involved. And so that was, I wasn't sure how it all got started at the school level, but that's one of the things I've learned in the past year.
Sounds good.
Good.
So what does the future of the spelling bee look like to you?
There's a lot of things. I am a very impatient person, as my staff will probably tell all of you if they ever given the chance. I will tell you, when I was interviewing for the Bee, it was in late January of 2021, sorry. It was in late January of 2021. The inauguration had just happened, and Amanda Gorman was there at the inauguration, stirring, wonderful, right? Really inspired our nation. Not long after she presented her poem, a meme popped up that went around the country that said, "There's an Amanda Gorman in every high school in the country." And I said, exactly. And there's a spelling bee champion in every school in the country. And that sort of has driven me in my year as I've gotten started and as I look forward. You know, we're trying to develop pathways within the Bee that becomes very inclusive. You know, you've probably heard your mom and I talk a little bit about my background was in social justice. Previously, just before coming to the Bee, I worked for a private family corporate foundation where we took unused space in shopping malls across the country and turned them into schools of choice for students at promise. Kids who had dropped out of high school, felt like they didn't need to go to school, then sort of had this epiphany like, oh, I do need a high school diploma, so they came back. And so was thrilled that we were able to do that. And I think that's one of the things that's really driving me is like, how do we make the Bee accessible to every kid? Like, how do they see themselves being you, right? Wherever they're at in the country or the world, quite frankly, because we do have students participate from all over the world. There's not a lot of details I can share yet, but I just named this earlier today. I'm calling it the Alma Rule, and it comes out of a conversation your mom and I had. Because of this work that I've done in social justice and making sure that kids are available, right? The old model has been there's always only the school is the only pathway forward for the Bee, right? Like you have to win your school championship. But not everybody feels comfortable in a school. You go to an alternative kind of schooling, right, through homeschooling. And so schooling and education can happen in a lot of places. Sometimes it's in social clubs, sometimes it's in churches, sometimes it's in civic organizations. So why not let a Boys and Girls Club sponsor their local Bee for school children, or the Urban League, or a church, or someplace like that. So we're gonna explore what school means as a way to get more kids involved and engaged. I also want to think about how we entice districts to think about evenly equipping their school district on presenting kids to present in the Bee. Now, just because a district is involved or because a local school is involved doesn't mean all the schools in that district are involved. And I think, so sometimes you get some uneven participation even in some of the communities. And we've got to think about how do we get that whole community involved? You know, again, being an educator and working in education, I know that when I look at some of the demographics of schools that participate, they tend to be higher socioeconomic status, right? They tend to have the money, they tend to have the support, they tend to have that pathway. So I look at that and I'm like, well, why aren't the schools with a lower, maybe they're a Title I or a lower SES overall demographic status, why aren't they involved? Well, pull back the layer one more level and you see that $175 fee that it costs to get involved with the Bee is often paid by teachers in their classroom out of their own pockets, which could be another whole presentation that I could do about why that makes me crazy. But I know teachers well enough to know that if they are working in a underserved school, they're taking that $175 and buying food and clothes for their kids. They're not worried about getting them involved in the spelling bee. And we've got to break that cycle. We've got to make the Bee aspirational for everybody, for every kid, no matter where they're at in the United States. And so I hope that will, thank you. I hope that'll be my legacy as being the executive director.
I hope so too. So kind of based off what you were just saying there, I have a little bit of a harder question for you. Like, what are you doing? What are you going to do to make sure there are more winners who look like me?
Yeah, and again, I think that's a lot of it is some of the stuff that I just talked about. But I think it is, if we look back, if we look at the Bee and the 11 million school children who participate, there's a good bit of diversity. Do we actually represent the general population yet? No. But as you get higher and higher in the competition or more competitive, it changes a lot very, very quickly. A lot of that is driven by economic resources or access to economic resources. I got to figure a way to blow that up, right? So part of the work that we're doing within the Bee is thinking about how do we provide those resources that some people feel like they need to go out and pay for or get access to in different ways. How do we develop master classes for spellers that could download those online or look at them on YouTube and teach themselves some of the stuff that you're doing? How do we take people like you and keep them involved in the Bee, previous winners and alumni? That's part of my plug for alumni, right? Uniquely, competitive spelling, you kind of age out, right, at 14. There's no future to that. But if you were playing junior league or basketball or whatever, you've got a bigger arc. So we've got to figure out a way to keep our alumni, those who age out, involved. Maybe they can be coaches for other kids that would help, that the Bee would hire them to coach kids. Maybe we would find ways to provide spelling clubs in local communities are some of the things that we're talking about. Are there ways in which that, we'd invite you back to teach a master class and put you on tape and say, this is how I did it, those kinds of things. So I think it's going to be, I'm thinking, here's my quote, right? I'm thinking exponentially, but I've got to make the changes incrementally. And that is going to be a commitment from us to do that. Because at the end of the day, I think the mission of the Bee is a little bit about, saving democracy. If I'm stealing that from an author I heard speak yesterday, actually, but it is about teaching language and literacy to think critically, to make good ideas, and to be able to articulate those ideas. So, we've talked a lot.
Yeah.
Zaila chastised us. She's like, with two chatterboxes like us, it may be hard to keep us to an hour, right?
Yeah.
So, I do have a question for you, though. If you were in my shoes, so flipping that question again on the end, what advice would you give me?
What advice would I give you? I think there are actually a lot of things that I would do, including some of the stuff that you talked about if I were in your shoes. And I think one of the things that I would do is I love your idea of having like free spelling tutors. Like that's a really big thing for me because like before I had a tutor, I was like only the 35th or 30th best speller in the country, which I got pretty far on my own, but 30 and 35th is not first place. And it's far from it actually. So I got a tutor. There's just one problem. That tutor cost $130 a session. Mm-hmm. And my family struggled to come up with that money. And I know that there are other, I actually spoke to a boy who was African American like me. He talked about, I don't have a tutor. I don't have Spell Pundit, which is a big program that all the spellers who win, like me, including me, have used. That's $600. But his family didn't just have $600 laying around. That's grocery money and stuff.
Right, absolutely.
And so I would definitely like get a free tutoring program, a free tutor program out there. So, and like you said, the master class, I think that would be a very good idea, teaching these people stuff, that they don't have somebody to go out and get tutors and buy programs and stuff like that. So that's one of the big things I would do.
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
And I have just one more thing.
Yes.
If I were in your shoes, I would find a way to keep the idea of the spell off in the Bee, where we have that. Basically, for those of you guys who don't know, it's the spell off was something we were going to do so that we don't have 8 people again. So when basically, if there was a tie at the end, there was going to be a moment where we could just spell as fast as we could for, how was it, like a minute?
90 seconds.
90 seconds. I would. I don't know if I can convey properly how this would work, but I know I'd be on the edge of my seat. Those would be, that'd be like a perfect made for TV moment. Like those 90 seconds, I just know it. And I think that's about, there are plenty of other things I would do, but I'm gonna make the list short like that.
Yeah, no, I like that. So the spell off, one of the things when I first started last year that was big in the press was we release our rules for the national competition around the 1st of April every year. And one of the things that we added last year was this spell off. And people were like, well, why are you doing that? Well, 2 things. Actually, we added 2 things last year, the word meaning round and the spell off. I took a lot of hits for that, for both of those at some level, which is fine. The word meaning round, people are like, well, it's not a word, it's not a vocabulary bee. Why are you having that, right?
Say, I was a little bit
thrown off.
Yeah, but luckily for me, I knew for other spellers, I knew that was going to be a little tough because typically, spellers do not look at the definitions. I just have to be that one person who also looked at the definition.
Right.
But I did.
That might have been your competitive edge, huh? One of them.
No. But still, I definitely could imagine that have been a little tough for the other spellers.
Yeah, but in my mind, how I thought about it was like, what's one of the questions that you ask at the microphone?
Can I have the definition?
Right.
Sure.
So if you give them the definition, shouldn't they be able to spell the word?
help.
Yeah, right? So that's the genesis of that and that whole language development piece of it. And so we also know that competitive spellers are outsmarting the dictionary. The Octochamps prove that at some level, right?
Yeah.
So part of our challenge is how do we bring up the level of the competition in the National Spelling Bee to the level of preparation of the spellers? And I would equate it to things like ice skating, and of course people would look at me like, what are you talking about? But competitive ice skating, right? You used to have the number this is how old I am. You used to have the number figures on the bottom where you would trace those out and you would be judged. And now it's who can do like a 4-toe flip something or other, like, you know.
Triple axel?
Yeah, right, like Nathan did at the Olympics, right? That's where the level of competition does. So also the spell off, which we did not use last year, but will be in the rules again this year, is at the sort of at that point where, you know, by spelling bee rules, we could come down to 2 spellers who would both continue to spell equally in their rounds, that we wouldn't have a clear champion. Now, I'm a firm believer that nobody trains to be the spelling bee champion or co-champion, right? You want to be the winner, ultimately, right? It may end in a tie, but we owe it to our competitors to help them find that pathway to being named the spelling bee champion. So the spell-off idea, as she just really actually laid out, it is sort of that 90 seconds where you are given a predetermined list of spelling words, and you need to spell as many correctly as you can in that 90 seconds. And we would take each of the spellers, you know, in a cone of silence, earphones backstage, whatever. We're all set to do that in Orlando if we had to. But you put them through that, and then the speller who spells the most words correctly in that period of time would be declared the champion by our judges.
That's so good. Did I already say that? That's so made for TV.
That is so nice to hear you say that because, you know, on the staff side, we thought, oh, is this too much pressure? Is it, you know, we had played with the ideas of maybe you would draw like a topic, like all the words you would get would be animal words, or all the words you'd get would be, you know, something else. We did away with that. So we're just using the, good feedback. I'll make note of that one. But we did away with that. But we have tested that idea with some other spellers, and all of the competitive spellers say, yeah, that's a really great idea. And of course, the ones we've asked are the ones who've already aged out. So
you mean after we can't get out on that system?
Yeah, right, exactly. You all love it at that point in time.
Trust me, I was really anxious. Like, I remember I even asked the judge, Mary Brooks, I asked her, like, what time is it? Because I was like, a part of me really wanted to be in the spell-off with Chaitra.
Yeah.
Like, I was so looking forward to that.
I don't remember, how many rounds did you and her go neck to neck?
I'm not sure. I think it was like 2 or 3.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
But we were getting awfully close by rules last year. We, at 9:50, the competition started at 8, we had to be off the air at 10. The competition, we said at 9:50 the judges could call that. And I think we got really, really close to that for sure, yeah. I couldn't remember how many times you and Chaitra went back and forth. She went out on Nuriel oil, right? Nuriel oil, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I can understand because that was a bit of a I always thought that was neroli.
Yeah.
And then I've asked people about it, and people who know about it say it's neroli, right? I had never heard it pronounced like that before.
And that is one of the things that I have found this year when you asked me earlier about some of those unique things, like what are some of those challenges? And what a lot of people don't know, for local bees, we actually produce a pronouncer's guide. So Dr. Sietsema, and Dr. Bailey too, who are our lead pronouncer and associate pronouncer, actually record the pronunciations of all the words that we then transmit to the local bees, so that their local pronouncers would so that every speller has the opportunity to do that. The other thing that we do is we also produce an annual word list of words of the champions, which is the basis of the spelling word list. It's only 4,000 words, I think. Only. Well, you're 13,000 a day. Come on, that's like a third of that. She keeps me honest, folks, right? Good. Anyway, we, again, I don't know, have there been any questions that have come up? Yeah. Are you ready? You ready to answer questions from the audience?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go. So the first one I will throw to you. It's, how did you get interested in the bee? Whoops. Could I have that question back on the monitor? Oh, there we go. How do you get the interested in the bee? Did you have a spelling bee coach? Do your friends and schoolmates share your love of words and spelling and reading? And this is from Tina.
I got interested in the spelling bee because of like I've said many times before, I have this big love of words. Like I read over 1,000 books and stuff. This just shows how much I love reading and how important it is to me. So for my 12th birthday, I asked my grandmother was like, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I was like, "I want interested to my spelling bee," which she had to call my parents. She didn't believe that's what I wanted, but that is what I wanted. I wanted interested to my regional spelling bee because I had this love of words. And so I actually won that bee, the first bee that I was in, which is a super cool and motivating experience for me. And my friends, are they interested? I mean, they were interested vicariously. They were interested in it because I was interested in it. Like, I definitely, like, once my teammates on my basketball team figured out that I was a speller and that I'd go everywhere because I had, that only 4,000 words list, I would literally take it with me everywhere. So I'd be sitting, like during breaks in basketball practice, I'd be looking at it and like studying for it, and they'd be over my shoulder looking at it. And so I definitely think they were interested via me.
Gotcha. The next question for you is, what is your technique? This is from Lisa. She's like, how are you able to stay grounded by having such exposure and many experiences?
I stay grounded. We're just going to assume I am grounded. I stay grounded mostly by just remember. I've always viewed myself. Like earlier today, somebody asked me, "Do you view yourself as a celebrity?" And I was like, "No, I don't," because I just view myself as a 15-year-old kid. And there are a lot of people around who like say, "No, you should think of yourself as like special. You're special." But I guess in some aspects I am, but in other aspects I'm just a typical person. So I think I just stay grounded just by remembering that I'm just a 15-year-old kid and try not to get too far separated from that notion.
Yeah, and I would add, knowing you, that you have 3 little brothers who help make that.
They remind me.
They remind you often, right?
Yes.
Too funny. This is another one from Tina. What's your technique for learning and remembering words? What tips do you have for educators teaching vocabulary to students in school?
So my technique was, when I had a tutor, he helped me learn roots. His name is Cole Schaefer-Ray. He was actually a runner-up in the spelling bee himself. And he taught me like roots, like how to know what the Latin root, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like ia, meaning condition, right? That's a Greek root. Meaning ia meaning condition. Like I learned that if I hear a word like that, then it's spelled like this. Kind of, I don't know how to cleanly explain it, but that's basically like the etymologies and the different roots and their meanings. And that was kind of how I learned my way of keeping track of all my words. And my tips for educators teaching vocabulary is just going right back to make it fun. Like, make it a game. Like, don't just sit there, poly means mini, this, that, and just memorize it. Make it fun, like, make it a game. Like, games are one of the big ways that kids especially learn things. Like, make it like something about dinosaurs or something, or seeing a picture and interpreting the roots in it or something, and, like, learning what the picture shows, that type of thing. Like, there are many ways to kind of help students to learn vocabulary while having fun doing it.
Okay, so having fun and learning those Greek and Latin roots that help define a lot of the language that we have now.
Oh yeah, that's I've learned post-spelling bee that's been a big help to me, like in some other stuff. Like I know what it means just because I know the roots.
Mm-hmm. And able to take it apart and put it back together again.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a question that's not on there, but just made me think about it? Again, just talking about your own style. When you stand at the mic and you hear a word, do you visualize it? Do you physically feel it? How do you recall? Well, you're laughing at me.
I'm not laughing. It's just that was one of those questions that are really tough for me.
Oh, okay.
Like I don't really know how I do it. Like some students I know have like the writing on their palm
hands,
or
or
their
they'll
typing.
type.
I don't have that because I wasn't taught given any of those days, and I don't really need them personally because I guess I write on the palm of my brain, or so to speak. So I just have it in my mind, and I don't really know how I do it. I just know that I think for a word like ancestry, which is in a spelling bee, I got that word and I knew exactly what it meant because of the root. And I guess I kind of saw it. It's like, you know how you think you saw a ghost? That's kind of how I think I saw the word visualized for me.
Sure.
Like when I saw ancestry and I saw it come up in front of my eyes, sort of.
Gotcha. That's good. No, I think that's fair. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but, you know, I think that there are, and I think you would maybe agree with this, is that people have innate skills, right? There are some people that are very good basketball players, as an example, or very good spellers, and that sometimes if they ask them, why do you do that, or how do you do that, you may not have that answer just because it's so innate in how you're made up, right?
Sort of.
I love this one. Do you have a favorite word from Melissa?
Do I have a favorite word? I think my favorite words, besides Maria, of course, my winning word is Teluk Chenderawasi, which is spelled Telukcenderawasih. I got this word in the spelling bee, and I got it wrong. It was the Hexagon Academic Spelling Bee.
Oh, okay.
And even though I ended up getting it, when the woman asked me the word, she couldn't even pronounce it. Like she was like it was such a tough word that even the pronouncers couldn't pronounce it. And that's what I'm sure lots of practice and stuff. So it's like a really fun word to say, and it never fails to stump people when I say it. So
yeah, and I know Yayoko is also another.
Oh yeah, that's
is another favorite one of a lot of spellers.
Yeah, that's actually a quite easy word. Like it's one of those words that look, because it has all those LLs everywhere, but it's actually based off of Spanish. I'm going on a tangent here, but based on the way Spanish works, that word is really, it's like cat, really.
Yeah, that you're able to get that through. Another question from Melissa. I teach K through 5, and my students want to know if you have spell check on your phone.
That is such a K to 5 question. Do I have spell check? First off, I don't really have a phone. I do have one, but it's for, who's clapping?
Your mother.
I do, the spell check is actually one of my worst enemies when I'm typing because of the words that I be typing my spelling words in. And spell check, as you might know, sometimes you try to type in one word and it insists that it's this word. And it's like, no, I want to type this word. So it was tougher when I was typing, like, say, a word, a Yoko, and it turns it into, like, say, rabbit.
Right.
And you're like, this is not what I typed.
Right.
One of the biggest things that spell check messes up is my name. It still thinks my name is Zaya for some reason, like Z-A-Y-A. It autocorrects to that. Like, no, I don't like spell check if you can't tell.
Well, and it's so funny you say that you like would type something in and something entirely comes up differently, right? Yeah. So I'm dyslexic, which, you know, has been an interesting point for someone to be in charge of the spelling bee. Luckily, I don't have to spell the words, but I have that same kind of challenge and other products that would complete the word for you. Now, my challenge is that I don't see the wrong word. I think I've put in the right word, and it's not until I go back, or sometimes it's my husband who calls me and go, are you really sure what you just wrote me? And I'm like, well, what does it say? He's like, oh, you need to check it. I'm like, you can't just say that to me because I don't know what it says. So we go at our house around about that a lot. It's a challenge. Oh, I love this next question. How accurate is the movie Aquila and the Bee, in your opinion? Is it a plausible story?
I would say so. The only part that's not plausible is the part about getting the word wrong. At least for me, for other kids, I am never going to do that. Never.
There you have it.
I guess I'm just not as nice as Aquila.
There you go. Well.
I'm sorry.
No.
But in general, I think it's a really accurate movie and the way it depicts Akila and the way she's going, and also the struggles that she has. Like, obviously, I don't have any struggles quite like hers, but I like the fact that the movie depicted her struggles. The only thing that I didn't quite like about the movie is the way the parents of the other kid were portrayed. That gives a really negative and a really long-lasting presentation of how spelling bee parents are. That like even my people on my team, my basketball team, is like, are your parents like that? I don't remember his name's parents. Yeah. And I'm like, no, that's not. I'm not threatened or anything like that. Yeah. So I say that's my only problem is the way the parents are portrayed.
Have you watched any of the other things that are out there about the bee, like Spellbound, which was the documentary?
Oh my father puts that movie on repeat. He just puts the movie like he has a player and it just repeats.
Oh, how funny! Do you know that some of the some of those kids in that movie are actually still involved in the bee? George,
I know.
Yeah, you know George. He's one of our judges on our word panel. Yeah, it is interesting. And then even just some of the video clips that are out there that live out there online, it's interesting. And I think most of them are favorable. The ones that make me a little nuts are the ones that aren't as favorable to some of the spellers, because those are difficult moments. I actually had a moment earlier this week. I was at a conference for EW Scripps Company, and there was someone who was helping us at the conference. She was part of the group that was making sure we had a good experience. And she shared with me that in her other day job, she was working, she's like, you're with a spelling bee? I'm working for the guy who passed out and then spelled his word.
Oh, yeah, he had hypoglycemia.
Right, he got his word, and that clip is out there on YouTube, and he bounced right back up. It's amazing. It's amazing the heroics that you guys all put forward, and I am just enamored and in awe of the hard work that you guys all do. I love this question, tell us about your favorite teacher.
My favorite, see, that's just one problem. I'm homeschooled.
Have you been homeschooled your whole education?
My entire life.
So is it mom or dad?
Grandpa.
Grandpa? Okay,
yeah.
We'll go with that. That's a safe answer.
Sorry.
I love that. Here's a... I forgot that.
I hope my father isn't watching this.
Your father loves you. You know that.
Okay.
What is the value of deconstructing words, and do you have any advice for students having fun doing it? How do you make deconstruction fun?
I think deconstructing words is like the funnest thing ever. Like, you know how there are those boys, mostly boys, who like take apart trains and stuff, and like those put it back together. Okay. Like, for me, it's my mental version of that, deconstructing words. Like, I just love, like, even when I'm just driving on the highway or something, and I see a word, and I'm like, hey, let me break this down, mentally look at it and put it back together. It's kind of like that for me, and it's super fun, and also it has a purpose, because like I mentioned previously, I've been benefited post-spelling by my ability to do that. Like, for example, I'm doing something with genes in space, and the word neurogenesis came up. And just imagine if I just heard that word before, and now part of the teaching that I have to be mentored by my mentor for that program, she has to tell me neurogenesis and what it means. Whereas as it is, I just got neurogenesis and I know immediately what it is just because I know the roots in it, like neuro meaning brain, genesis meaning creation. And just like that, I know what it means. And so it's really, I say it has a lot of value. And the way to make it fun is maybe you could use that example for like those boys who like to take apart trains and put them back together and stuff, like kind of tell us, hey, you just do it mentally. Or like I also previously mentioned, like do like a game or something with dinosaurs.
Right. Well, even as you're talking, I'm thinking about, you know, like Legos, right? Each little part of the word, each root of the word, each of those are all Legos that you could build something with and part. Talk a little bit more about that experience that you were just talking about with your mentor and the genes in space, because you were just telling me about that before we started here. Sounds like a really wonderful opportunity.
It is. I met her, Tessa Montague, when I was visiting Columbia University, which is a super cool experience I had. And she introduced me to this program, Genes in Space, which is where you come up with an experiment. And the idea it's like you have to do something about genes. That it's about space, but as the word space indicates, genes in space. So the winning prize is you get to have your experiment sent up to the International Space Station, and they'll actually do your experiment.
That's so cool.
I don't expect to win this competition because I've never done anything like this before, where I'm putting together an experiment and stuff. Like, I'm just learning about, well, not learning because I know about this stuff, but just learning how to actually do it. And it's so cool. I'm having so much fun doing it.
That's very cool. I see you light up when you talk about it. That is cool.
I was just telling her I had a demon in me because.
Well, but I remember, again, going back to last year, right after you won, somebody said, well, what do you want to do, right? You said Harvard, NASA, and the WNBA. Yeah. Are those still the three big ones?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I went to go to college at Harvard, play basketball at Harvard, WNBA, then become an NBA head coach and possibly work for NASA.
There you go. I hope it happens soon while I'm still here to see it all go. Good. We have a couple more questions. And what sacrifices, if any, did you or your family have to make it to the National Bee? Now, you talked about some of the economic choices that you made, but have there been others too?
Oh, yes, definitely. One of the main things is that my brothers had to learn how to be a little bit quiet while I'm studying. They like to run around the house and scream like wild banshees. One of the things my father tells them is, please act like a human. And while I was studying, I say that, and I mean that seriously, like, it was a little bit hard for them to realize when they come over, like, no, you have to be quiet. You can't just come over here screaming. And I say that was kind of their happiness a little bit being sacrificed. And also, I would say just partially because of the spelling bee, and also because of the pandemic, we didn't leave the house as much. Like, typically we leave a lot and they go out to play at parks and stuff. And there were periods where you could have gone out and there wouldn't be anybody at the parks. But because I was studying, my family didn't want to leave me alone at the house for good reasons. They stayed here. And I think that was a little bit hard for their psyches, not getting to go out so much and go play.
That's fascinating. That's very nice of you to think of them in that context. Good for you. Do you think any of your little brothers will follow in your footsteps?
One of the things I think that was really with them there, they saw the process. Like, I knew about it, but I didn't fully understand the work I have to put in. Mm-hmm. I think they have seen exactly what the spelling bee is about and may or may not choose to participate because they know this is a big commitment. Like, if you do it, you have to throw your whole heart into it. You can't just do it 30 minutes a day and be like, I'm going to go to the Scripps National Spelling Bee. No, you really have to study. And I think them seeing it if they go into it, they'll know what they're going in for.
Right.
But I don't know if they'll go into it.
Interesting. That's fascinating. One last question here is, how many words did you study today? And have you ever, oh, I love this. Have you ever corrected your parents if they misspelled a word?
Yes. I've completely retired from spelling. I mean, I'm pretty young to be retiring, aren't I? But I've completely retired, so I don't study words anymore. I definitely correct my parents if they misspell, mispronounce, anything. Anything.
But I'm sure you do it in a very loving way.
Not necessarily.
All right. Too funny. So this year, we're back to a regular Bee Week in DC. Yeah. We're excited that you're going to be able to join us there. Mm-hmm. We are bringing back some old traditions of the Bee. One of the things that I'm a big fan of having we'll have 230 spellers converge on National Harbor, Maryland, just right outside of DC. We'll spend a week in sort of like a bee camp experience where we will bring in writers. We'll talk about STEM activities as well as the competition. This year, LeVar Burton is joining us as our host. What do you think about that? What advice would you have? Thank you. What advice would you have for LeVar? I hadn't asked you that previously, but I
What
wonder.
advice?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like of course, as we all know, reading Rainbow, he's a really big part of me and especially my parents' life.
Yep.
I don't know, like, what advice I would have for him. I guess I just tell him he's not as good at words as he thinks. He might come in thinking that he's super good at words because of reading Rainbow, but be prepared to be outworded by some spelling wizards.
And there you have it. Be prepared to be outworded. I love that. This year, the Bee will be on ION Networks, which is on, in full disclosure by EW Scripps Company. We're thrilled to be on ION, and we'll probably be carried on some of our other channels, Bounce, Newsy. You'll be able to see us there. We will be on not only for the finals on June the 2nd from 8 to 10 p.m., but also on June 1st. They'll be doing the semifinals and carrying that competition. We'll be live streaming across our platforms the whole week, starting with all 232 students coming forward for their first rounds of that. So we do hope that you will join us and be involved. If you're not already following the Spelling Bee, please do on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. We're there. You have quite a following on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to give out your handles or no? I didn't ask you
Sure.
that.
I have on Instagram, I'm at Zaila Avant-garde, quite intuitively. I know that's why I'm at Instagram. Somebody please tell me. Yeah, same thing for Twitter. Do I have a face? Oh no, I'm too young for Facebook. Facebook is for old people.
Wow, you throw that old thing around a lot.
I'm just saying.
I know. Last words, any last words?
I guess I'd say thank you to everybody who came out here today and to anybody who watched. I hope you guys had a lot of fun here, and I hope you guys watch the Spelling Bee because it's really exciting. Maybe there'll be a spell-off.
Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Zaila, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I really appreciate it. You have been an amazing ambassador for the Scripps National Spelling Bee. I often say that if I had to go out and pick somebody to be the winner and cast them as if I was casting Akila and the Bee, I could have never found anybody as wonderful as you. So you and your family have been such a great partner for us over this past year, and so thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Zaila.